Laurence Fishburne is one of the most outstanding performers to ever set foot in Hollywood. With him, a flair for effective roles and command on screen has always been tantalizingly great. From the breakout role he had in the Matrix trilogy, where he played Morpheus, to the gripping performances in Boys in the Hood and What's Love Got to Do with It, the man has held fast to be one of the household names. Although he is a well-acclaimed celebrity, very little is known about him, let alone his daughter Montana Fishburne. Years of her life were filled with a lot of controversies about decision-making and family dynamics. Now at 32, Montana Fishburne has finally come forward into the light to tell the world what has been happening behind those rumors all these years. What many once speculated about her choices and her tumultuous relationship with her famous dad is now addressed in the open. The trail that has brought her to this milestone has been fraught with obstacles, decisions wholly against the grain, and struggles to create an individual identity in the shadow of her dad's mammoth legacy. Picking up where another left off is never easy, and growing up as the child of any Hollywood icon carries its pressures. The pressure on Montana has been immense. She was living under the scrutiny of the public eye, hence she found herself making decisions that were highly scrutinized later. One of the most talked about and pivotal moments in her life was entering the adult film industry. This shocked not only the entertainment world but her close ones too. Many perceived this as a rebellious act, one that was finally going to bring her out from under the shadow of her famous father. Others perceived it as a cry for attention or a cry for help. This only furthered speculations, and Montana's relationship with Laurence Fishburne seemingly strained further through media portrayals of familial dysfunction and unresolved tension. Montana has come out recently to talk about the motive behind such an action, and she has acknowledged some of those things that many people suspected earlier on. She speaks for the very first time of personal demons she has been fighting along with living a life in the public eye. Candid confessions bring into focus the pressure she felt, the emotional toll of her decision, and the impact of her strained relationship with her father. But beyond all those headlines and sensational local papers, it's growth, self-awareness, and redemption. Montana reflects on her childhood and continues talking about her way towards self-understanding and further peace with the past. Her revelations provide insight into what it means to live in the shadow of a super-famous parent, fight for independence, and find identity. Finally, at 32, she is ready to take ownership of a narrative that is far more complex than the rumors that have followed her. Below, in this video, we go into extraordinary depth with Montana Fishburne on her revelations, the truth behind the motives, the aftermath the family had to deal with, and how she's moving forward. What does it truly mean to come of age amidst such public scrutiny? And how does Laurence Fishburne, one of the most iconic figures of Hollywood, respond to his daughter's journey? Ahead is the story of Montana Fishburne, a yarn of a woman behind headlines who has spoken for the first time in years. The rise of Laurence Fishburne to fame. Laurence Fishburne's journey to stardom is one of sweat, talent, and perseverance in the competitive industry that is Hollywood. Born in 1961 in Augusta, Georgia, Fishburne started his acting career at an extremely tender age. At only 14 years old, he had his first major appearance in the classic war film Apocalypse Now by Francis Ford Coppola. It was an early role that showed he could hold his own with some of the biggest names in the industry, but it was only the beginning of a long and varied career. Fishburne came to prominence in the 1991 film Boys in the Hood, where he took up the role of Furious Styles, a father who was strict yet caring, trying to bring up his son through the harsh neighborhood of Los Angeles. His performance resonated not just with audiences but also focused his reputation as an actor who can give gravitas and depth to a character. In many ways, it was the tone-setting performance of his career, continually showing him playing authoritative, intellectual figures. Arguably, his most widely recognized role came in 1999 with The Matrix. As Morpheus, the mentor and guide to Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, Fishburne found a modern icon in science fiction. His deep voice, commanding presence, and philosophical dialogue resounded all over as key elements of the film's success, and the role cemented his status as a Hollywood legend. Over the years, Fishburne has played a multitude of roles, from the Emmy-winning turn in Tribe to his work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, further showing his range as an actor. From drama to action, he has always pulled off great performances in science fiction movies. However, behind the curtains, Fishburne also played an important role as a father. His fame carried with it the added onus of bringing up kids in the cold shadow of his stardom. As a father, Fishburne is said to be strict and protective. He often tends to shield his family from the pressures and pitfalls that come with Hollywood. Despite these efforts, the path that his daughter Montana's life took attracted the media spotlight, and Fishburne's role as a father came under scrutiny. Being an icon in Hollywood and a parent was a huge pressure. Their children grew up with the challenging task of living in the shadow of their larger-than-life persona. Through all the ups and downs, Laurence Fishburne remains one of Hollywood's most valued and long-lasting figures. Early life of Montana Fishburne. Montana Fishburne was born into the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, daughter to celebrated actor Laurence Fishburne. Since coming into this world, Montana's life has been influenced by the fame and fortune surrounding her family. Her father had taken iconic roles in the Matrix trilogy and Boys in the Hood, always a bigwig in Hollywood, casting a long shadow over her early years. Privileged by wealthy and elite circles alike, Montana also faced the strong pressures of being in the limelight while growing up in Los Angeles. Exposure to the entertainment industry and all of its high expectations met Montana in her childhood as the star's daughter. As protective as Laurence Fishburne was over his family, trying to keep as much as he could private, he really couldn't keep Montana out of the limelight. She went to elite schools, socialized with other celebrities' children, and knew the world would be watching her every move. She felt that over time, people saw her not as an individual, but rather as Laurence Fishburne's daughter. Rebellious to a fault, Montana had been acting out since she was young. It would seem from a very early age that Montana deliberately set her mind on not being constrained by societal or paternal convention. She has said in interviews how tough it was to find her identity while living in the shadow of her father's career. Although born into a high-profile family, Montana felt the burden of constant comparison with her father. It sparked in her the drive to break loose from the stereotypical mold set by Hollywood and take another road. As soon as she reached her teenage years, Montana began to look for ways to distinguish herself from the conventional paths that children born of celebrities would take. While the children of royalty in the film industry were beginning to embark on acting careers or opting to pursue some other related spheres of entertainment, Montana chose to follow another course, one far more fraught and sensational. Her behavior early on seemed to reflect a desire to shock, to break out from the mold of what was expected of her. She was not content with just being at the helm of her family's surname. She wanted to be recognized for her own choices and decisions, no matter how bold. Montana Fishburne's decision to join the adult film industry. Without a doubt, the decision of Montana Fishburne to enter the adult film industry in 2010 was the most controversial moment of her life. When she was just 19 years old, she took a path quite different from what many might have expected, a move so jolting to her family and one that raised many eyebrows, especially since her father was a Hollywood figure. She is the daughter of Laurence Fishburne, one of the most respected actors of all time, and Montana's foray into adult entertainment immediately pegged her as a radical difference from anything projected by celebrity children. That decision not only whetted the media's appetite but also disturbed her family, especially her father. Many saw it as a kind of rebellion, a means to break free from the shadow cast by her father's fame, to make a name for herself in an utterly different field. Montana said at the time that she was inspired by the success of other celebrities, such as Kim Kardashian, who also gained fame after private videos were released. She mentioned that entering the adult industry might help her pursue an entertainment career, and she welcomed the idea of a household name outside of the norm. But the public's reaction was immediate and sharp. Whereas some commiserated with a young woman attempting to make her way through the less than sheltered aspects of life, most were judgmental and questioned her motives, disapproving of the choice she had made. There was no doubt that this was an overblown scandal on the part of the media, whose headlines and tabloid feature stories reflected how the starlet was second-guessing herself, along with postulating the repercussions affecting the Fishburne family. It was a choice fully surrounded by disbelief and judgment, since she was one of those Hollywood kids expected to, at the least, shadow their parents' footsteps or maintain a decent public image. The effect this had on her relationship with her father was immediate and intense. There were reports that Laurence Fishburne was deeply hurt and embarrassed by his daughter's choice. While the actor remained tight-lipped in public, it seemed the decision strained their bond. It even went so far as to say Laurence tried distancing himself from the controversy and struggled to balance the love he had for his daughter with the public scandal that arose as a result. The fallout with Laurence Fishburne. When Montana Fishburne made headlines by entering the adult film industry in 2010, the news reverberated through Hollywood and her family. Her father, Laurence Fishburne, known for dignified roles and his respected reputation, reportedly was in turmoil over the news, creating a significant strain in their father-daughter relationship. For the man who carved his career on leading strong and dignified characters, Montana's choice single-handedly seemed to fly in the face of everything he was about, meaning on a deeply personal and emotional level, the conflict was stark between them. Media reports at the time suggested that Laurence was heartbroken over his daughter's actions and went so far as to say he had cut off all means of communication with her. While Laurence Fishburne himself remained tight-lipped on the fallout, sources close to the family revealed that he was devastated. The media was filled with rumors that Laurence had begged his daughter to reconsider her career choices and even offered to pay her to walk away from the industry. Yet Montana was determined to do her thing, come what may. In an interview during that period, Montana described the tension between her and her father, acknowledging an emotional distance that had grown between them. "I know he has very strong feelings about it," she said, "but I have to live my life for me." Her words reflected part of the desire for independence, which must have been treading precariously if one were to risk losing her relationship with her father. Montana wished for eventual reconciliation despite the fallout. "I hope that one day we can find common ground." This is to say that even as Montana insisted on her way, the personal relationship was a little complex. Still valuing her father's opinion, she was thus on the lookout for an amicable resolution. Laurence Fishburne, on his part, never publicly disowned his daughter, and only the silence between them revealed massive hurt and disappointment. The media made him appear as a father tormented by his daughter's actions, who did not quite know how to balance his love for her with the hurt he felt over the choices she had made. Personal battles and struggles of Montana. The troubles have always been part of Montana Fishburne's very public journey, more than some of her private struggles. Growing up as the child of a Hollywood icon like Laurence Fishburne is in and of itself a burden to carry in terms of expectation and stress. Indeed, for Montana, the impact brought on by being constantly under scrutiny in the public eye probably contributed to some of the emotional and mental health challenges she only now reflects upon more openly. She had to bear the scrutiny of the public eye from her tender years, which, more often than not, judged her not on her merits but against the famous career that was her father's. This kind of intense scrutiny led to a series of personal struggles, each accompanied by turmoil over self-identity and personal decisions that would separate her from the shadow cast by her father's fame. These societal pressures for celebrity children often set very high expectations, and Montana's every move was followed and criticized. This pressure to maintain an image, along with the constant media presence, only fed into her emotional pain. She made several decisions earlier on in her life that garnered much public disapproval. Perhaps most notably among these, Montana entered the adult film industry. This was seen as an act of defiance by many once again, a way in which she could defy all the hopes her family and society had in her. Later on, Montana said that this decision wasn't as black and white as it had seemed. In having arrived at such a drastic decision, the struggle is deeply rooted in finding autonomy, seeking attention, and searching for some kind of validation apart from her father's towering career. The backlash from the media and the public surely did nothing to help but further isolate her. Rather than understanding the personal demons she was fighting, much of it was built upon a scandalous foundation, trying to cast a shadow of negativity upon her choice. This furthered the emotional toll as she became the subject of tabloid gossip, and her relationship with her father deteriorated. The stress between Montana and Laurence Fishburne was not only a private tragedy but a public spectacle, adding deeply to her alienation. The long-standing rumors. Montana Fishburne has been in the eye of speculation and rumors in public for years. Living in the shadow of her father, acclaimed actor Laurence Fishburne, the actions of Montana seemed magnified by the media. The porn industry she chose as her field of action shocked everyone, and along with rumors about motives, her relations with her father circulated in the air. All those problems Montana kept silent about for more than 10 years never helped people get a clear look. The silence finally broke when Montana, at 32, responded to many of those rumors, but more importantly, shared candid insights about her struggles, choices, and decisions, and how those affected her family. In several recent interviews and public statements, Montana has shared the nature of some of the emotional and psychological battles she went through, which factored so strongly into the choices of her life. What the public long suspected, that her decision to enter the adult film industry was a way to establish her own identity separate from her father's overwhelming fame, she acknowledged. Montana said that she faced great pressure from the fact that her father was an actor renowned worldwide, while she did not know what to strive for in her life. These pressures, at least in part, motivated her to enter the adult entertainment world as a sort of rebellion. She wanted to be acknowledged as a person in her own right, but that boomeranged back to her in unyielding forms of public scrutiny and a broken relationship with her family, particularly her father. Montana has spoken candidly about the state of her mind during that period. She explained that she was facing some personal problems related to a feeling of insufficiency and seeking attention, and more. Previously, people suspected that the reasons for her performances were also cries for help. Montana confirmed this, saying that she was confronting an incredibly heavy emotional battle. She spoke about feeling misunderstood and lost by her family and the public, a thing that contributed even more to her wanting to take control of her narrative. Though now, with 2020 hindsight, she says that was more hurtful than helpful. Perhaps one of the most meaningful things shared by Montana is how the choices she made affected her relationship with her dad. Because of the choices she had made, there had been rumors for years that Laurence Fishburne was greatly disturbed and let down. Montana has only just recently clarified that her relationship with her father became highly strained after she entered the adult film industry. Where the media has portrayed a picture of complete estrangement, Montana recently set the record straight that even though there was distance for long periods, they never completely cut ties. However, the relationship was certainly fractured, and it would take several years for them to start healing. Montana also spoke of what motivated her now, after all this time, to open up. The poor girl said she wished to reclaim her past, speak her truth on her terms, and put a rest to the rumors and misconceptions that have followed her for so long. By addressing the issues head-on, she hopes she will be able to repair not only her public image but also heal the wounds within her family. Her reflections are indeed reflective of growth and maturity in the way she accepted her mistakes in her youth, instead of appearing to play for sympathy. Montana does seem intent on providing a blunt narrative about her life, one that details the emotional turmoil that accompanied her choices and the hard road she's traveled to some semblance of self-awareness and healing. Montana's road to healing and redemption. It hasn't exactly been smooth sailing when it comes to healing and redemption regarding Montana Fishburne. She has had to fight her way through one controversy after another in life, things many could not have imagined. Now finally, at 32, Montana seems to have started finding her route toward maturity, self-acceptance, and personal growth. For years, Montana was equated with the scandal of her choice to enter the adult film industry, a polemic career choice that would not only drive a wedge between herself and her famous father, Laurence Fishburne, but shadow her early adulthood. What went unseen, though, were perhaps the personal struggles that had driven her into such bold decisions in the first place. Behind the headlines, Montana was waging her emotional war, pleading for deliverance from the sapping pressure of living in her father's shadow. In other words, it was a cry for independence, but one that in delivery sent shockwaves through the public and family relationships. Montana has reflected upon her decisions and spoken more candidly about her road to recovery. Coming to terms with her past was not easy, it had to be lived with, along with the consequences of everything she did personally and publicly. She admits that some choices in life were driven by youthful rebellion and a strong need to be different from her father's fame. She has also made statements where she says she is sorry about the outcome of having made such decisions that affected her family, most especially the relationship between her and Laurence. As Montana grew older, she worked on piecing her life together, taking back control of her story. Rather than letting her past define her, she began working on herself. She had to gradually disentangle herself from precisely those things that had wrapped her career in so much controversy and step back from the limelight. She wanted to learn about who she was outside of the package the press had made her out to be. The present effort at reunification with her father is part of this road to redemption. The relationship remains complicated, but there is some evidence that the two have healed much of the hurt. Montana's frankness about her life provides a bridge toward reconciliation in that it now seems she is more prepared than at any other time to mend bridges and repair her relationship with her family. The effect on the Fishburne family. The choices made by Montana Fishburne greatly influenced her family, particularly the relationship she has with her father, Laurence Fishburne. Shocks reverberated not only within the entertainment world but also in her own family after she decided to enter the adult film industry in her early 20s. Laurence Fishburne gained his reputation by performing some heavy-hitting, highly acclaimed roles, but he reportedly was so at odds with the choices Montana made that the relationship between them was documented as strained. The rift between father and daughter set off intense public scrutiny that often became synonymous with the family dynamic between them. This Montana decision was, to Laurence, a man so involved in his craft and referred to for his high discipline and professionalism more than just some career choice. It was perceived as a rebellion against values he had been trying to teach his children. Laurence reportedly distanced himself from Montana after she made her very controversial move, a decision that might have created deep emotional scars within the family. In that case, the whole story of silence spoke louder, and for a long time it was believed that the damage between them was irreparable. This further alienated the larger Fishburne family from Montana's choices, which had thrust them all into an uncomfortable media frenzy. Her mother, actress Haja Moss Fishburne, has remained largely out of the public conversation, but it can certainly be said that the tension between father and daughter has filtered through their personal lives. While none of Montana's other family members have made any public statements regarding her actions, one can only imagine how these events must weigh on the minds of the Fishburnes. Her younger siblings, including half-brother Langston Fishburne, would have been first-hand witnesses to this aftermath. While it can be tough being born into and growing into the pressures of fame and the shadow of a successful parent, this was multiplied tenfold for the rest of her family due to Montana's public controversies. There have been rumors of reconciliation over the years, with Montana speaking about her growth and making hints at attempts to repair her relationship with her father. The steps toward healing reflect the strong bonds within the family despite the turmoil faced regarding choices made by Montana. Public perception. When Montana Fishburne first thrust herself into public view, she did so with a loud rumbling noise heard through many avenues of media. This announcement came with shock and great amazement, accompanied by an outburst of criticism. The daughter of such a highly talented actor as Laurence Fishburne, Montana's choices have been viewed through the lens of her father's fame. This was sensationalist in tone, appealing to the scandal of the situation and personal judgment rather than the life circumstances of her own. The general public judged her without pity at first. She was made to appear defiant and desperate for attention at all costs when in fact there was a lot more to her decisions. The media did little or nothing to explain complicated issues like growing up pressures with continuous public eyes on her, or the troubled relationship with her dad. Rather, Montana was branded as a symbol of controversy, and the story landed on her as one of warning rather than as a complex individual fighting her demons. Perception has changed for quite some time. As Montana has begun to be more candid about her struggles and motivations, so too has the narrative around her shifted. Admitting so candidly that the decisions she has made have weighed emotionally and mentally brings depth to the decisions she has made. It's been a movement away from the scandalous figure to one with whom one could empathize because of her genuine struggles, a movement reflective of a broader change in attitudes toward empathy and mental health. The media played a big role in these stories. First, there was the media's obsession with scandal and sensationalism, feeding the public's outrage and condemnation. As Montana's story has unfolded and more of her humanity has come to light, media narratives have steadily shifted toward much more empathy and reflectiveness. This swing suggests that media stories may metamorphose from shock and criticism into nuanced empathy due to continuous personal revelations and changes in society's attitude. Laurence Fishburne's response. Since Montana Fishburne has come forward with her truth, There has been much interest from the public and media alike in Laurence Fishburne's response. The well-respected and renowned actor, known for his commanding performances and highly thought-of career, now has to walk through some very complex and often painful dynamics regarding his daughter under very scrutinizing times. Laurence Fishburne's reaction to Montana's decision to work in the adult film industry sounded very disappointed with public restraint. Early on, Laurence opted for tempered responses, no doubt to avoid fanning the media flames or airing dirty laundry in public. Consequently, his silence was taken by many as a sign of his disapproval, further feeding speculation about the troubles in their relationship. As it was, Laurence's public statements, when they came at all, were invariably diplomatic, eliciting his wish for Montana's well-being without direct criticism of the choices she had made. Eventually, however, as Montana herself started to make public statements regarding her previous actions and the effect they had on her family, Laurence seemed to relax his stance. While he still kept largely silent in terms of public utterances, at various moments he seemed to ease up. Reports and interviews would suggest that Laurence faces a double challenge as a father, keeping his head above water in terms of public image while trying to come to terms with and be reconciled with his daughter's experience. With both their lives being so high profile, along with some pretty profound personal issues, it has proved to be a delicate balancing act. There are, however, subtle indications recently that a reconciliation may be in the wind. Laurence has tended to address the situation, saying he wants to heal and rebuild the relationship, but the details are still very personal. From public appearances and interviews, it would seem the situation is a little more complicated than that, and Laurence can be supportive of his daughter despite very public conflicts. He has never completely disowned Montana, so he may try to sort out any issues, if somewhat away from the public eye, whereas Montana Fishburne now, over the last few years, Montana Fishburne has struggled through metamorphosis, the process of identity and acceptance slowly coming into her own after so many years living with her name and the most tumultuous publicly. As the daughter of Hollywood's great Laurence Fishburne, she has gradually made necessary overtures in shaping a different life scenario for herself and her career. Major healing and acts of self-acceptance are occurring within Montana in her personal life. She has taken her life out of the porn industry to be far away from the controversies attached to her name and instead found time for personal growth and development. Montana has spoken publicly about her mental health struggles and has been open about her experiences in therapy and personal development. This time of introspection has proved important to rebuilding her self-esteem and creating a more positive, stable environment in her life. Professionally, Montana has moved into a new phase in her career. She says she wants to start working on projects that reflect her values and better align with her long-term goals. Most recently, she has dabbled in the fields of fashion and entertainment, but outside of the adult world. Montana has used her platform to engage in multiple initiatives with a focus on mental health and self-empowerment through the sharing of her own story, with the hope that it will continue to help others with adversities. This is quite evident from what Montana says at various public appearances and interviews. She openly shares how her previous decisions in life affected not only herself but also her relationships with her immediate family members. With these issues talked about openly, she tries to clear the misunderstanding for a better view of her experiences. All this has been part of her broad effort to redefine her narrative and focus on positive contributions. Conclusion: Montana Fishburne's situation should be deeply reflected on to show identity, atonement, family dynamics, and pressures from living in the shadow of fame. The story of Montana underlines just how fragile personal identity is, especially growing up in the public eye. Being the daughter of a Hollywood icon made Montana confront the tremendous pressure of forging her path while trying to figure out what was expected and what people assumed about her. That she chose to work in adult films is controversial, to say the least, but it shows how many people struggle to carve out their identities independently of others. The thread of redemption weaves into the very core of Montana's story. Her recent revelations mark a point of inflection in her life from a string of headlines over the years, for which she has expressed regret later in life. She does something very important toward taking ownership of her narrative by being very candid about the past and why she did things that were never popular. Family plays a big role in Montana's life. Her strained relationship with her father, Laurence Fishburne, reflects the broader struggles that can arise within a family unit when fame and public scrutiny form a part of one's life. Montana's and her father's challenges underline how larger societal pressures can worsen the internal struggle of family members in their endeavor to support one another through times of stress. Pressures of living in the shadow of fame are apparent throughout Montana's life. The weight of her father's legacy, combined with public expectations and media scrutiny, created a set of unique challenges. This aspect of her story captures an unseen difficulty for children of celebrities, trying to find their path in life amidst the overwhelming presence of their famous parents.